What's going on, people, and welcome to Man Knows Football. You're here with myself, Guni, and Fraser. It's been a while since I put up a video on the channel, but you lot already know if you've been following me on the Twitter. I've been active on the tweets. So if you haven't been, just definitely give that a follow. But Fraser, thank you very much for coming back onto the platform, man. Appreciate you taking your time to come and give us some more football talk, much needed for myself. And obviously, it's always good to talk football, man. But first and foremost, and most importantly, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm doing well. It's certainly picking up the window, isn't it? It's starting to get busier now. Sorry, let me put my phone and that on mute. Otherwise, I'll be annoyed the whole way through this stream, everybody. So let me just do that. But yeah, no, I'm good, mate. It's getting busier. It's picking up. I think next week's going to be a huge week. A lot of clubs and teams coming back from the training camps. A lot of people who are involved in a lot of things who have maybe taken a few days out at the end of this week, they'll be back for the beginning of next week. So watch next week for sure. It's certainly about to pick up.
We're going to talk about Chelsea. And, once again, we seem to be sort of stealing part of the transfer headlines with what's going on at our club. Obviously, the whole situation with Moises Caicedo. Then there was this whole kerfuffle yesterday, this whole confusion of Chelsea are not looking at another striker. And many do believe, off the back of that news, that Jackson will be leading the line and sharing responsibilities with Armando Broja. Some fans are very concerned at this news. Other fans actually see this as a very positive thing, as they believe the strikers market isn't quite up to the standards that Chelsea should be shopping in right now. Me personally, I do feel there are a couple targets that could come into Chelsea and definitely do a job that I hope Chelsea are at least looking to take seriously at some point in this window. So I guess the striker situation, we're just going to start at that point. For me, I'm just going to get straight into it, into the targets that I would personally love to see. I would love it for Chelsea to be in for Gonzalo Ramos at Benfica. I haven't heard anything about that. That's just a personal favorite for me. Dusan Vlahovic as well of Juventus. Obviously, we're going to have to talk a little more on Vlahovic. But outside of that, who's currently available, there was talk about Ivan Toney, but I'm not really a fan of having to wait until January to make that happen because of obviously the ban that's occurred. Chelsea needs something right now. We need something now because, as you said in previous streams, and as we all know, creativity wasn't necessarily the problem at times. It was the lack of finisher, and that still remains true. Although I do want to be fair to Jackson. I haven't seen the guy play, so it's not fair for me to criticize him straight away, but he is a bit of an unknown element for me. But Fraser, let's start off with the whole situation with the Chelsea strikers. Are they actually going to be looking at strikers, or is the news that came out yesterday true? We're going to just leave the strikers market for now.
Yeah, well, I mean, yesterday you've seen news coming out from all quarters. Some people saying Chelsea want this player. Some people saying Chelsea don't want this player. He's interested. He's not interested. They want a striker. They don't want a striker. And I don't play the game of belittling other reporters and podcasts and stuff. It's not my game. I just go with it. And what I'm told, and what I understand is not changed. And that is Chelsea would still like someone who has got a record and a history and has played at a top level and putting the ball at the back of it. That's not changed. What I
Interesting.
think's key to note here is that Broja is a really interesting one because many people who watch this might have been on Twitter Spaces when I've been on there, and it's always been he's going to be assessed. He needs to be looked at. He's coming back from a really bad injury as well. How will that pick up an injury that usually takes some time for most players to get back to where they were or can be? So that was another thing. Will he go out on loan? That was a potential. Will he need game time to get him up to the level that Pochettino will certainly want him at Chelsea? So my understanding is thus that Chelsea will still be open to bringing another striker into the football club. I think sometimes people hear that and they hear Chelsea are signing another striker, and that's where we as journalists get pelted at Twitter. It's like, we didn't say that. What we're saying is Chelsea have an idea that they would like another striker in the door. That's certainly the perfect window for them. If they don't do that, it's not my fault. Ben Jacobs, Fabrizio Romano, David Ornstein, Darkos, it's not our fault. We don't do the deals. We just tell you the plan. So Vlahovic is a player Chelsea have admired and liked. I know that there's been reports out last night that there was no talks ongoing. I actually find that quite confusing because I don't know who said talks are ongoing. So I don't know where that's come, why you would have to report there's no talks ongoing. No one actually has said there's talks ongoing. We're just saying that Chelsea like him. He's been on the radar, and that's not been incorrect to my understanding. Again, to my understanding, Lautaro Martinez is a player that is really liked by Pochettino. This idea, firstly, that he wouldn't leave Inter Milan is, and to my understanding, not true. He absolutely would love to play in the Premier League and for his fellow countrymen in Pochettino. And two, that Inter Milan wouldn't sell him. We can talk about Lukaku in a second, mate, as well, but people were saying, well, they wouldn't sell him. One, they need the money. The reason that they've come back for Lukaku is because they've got the Onana funds. So you have to understand that's the market they're working in. They have to sell to buy. And if Chelsea were to come in to go in €70 million around that mark for Lautaro Martinez, that could be 2 strikers for Inter Milan, potentially. I know they've lost out on Lukaku, which is a mad story in itself, but when is Lukaku not involved in a bit of a mad story, let's be honest. So that might be one where people go, well, they're not going to sell Martinez now, but they will have other targets in the bag as well that they'll go for, that they'll want to buy. So we'll wait and see. So that's another one. Kolo Muani is a player that's been mentioned a lot. Chelsea have looked at him. Again, I'm not saying they're in talks. I'm just saying that's another one that's been looked at, of course. And then you spoke about Ramos at Benfica, who's been on the radar for a lot of clubs, but nothing that I've heard of for Chelsea at this point in time. By the time we're recording this, the time you put it out, mate, football changes really, really fast. So something could happen. I think it'll be interesting if if Chelsea choose not to go for a striker. What it will do is open up another midfield option. I won't go into that because you might want to move on to that in a minute, but that's certainly an area that could open up. But my understanding is if the opportunity arises for the right deal for Chelsea to bring in a man that they know is going to put the ball in the back of the net, Pochettino, for example, with Lautaro Martinez, sees him as the perfect pressing forward for the way that he plays football. Then if the opportunity arose for that to happen, Chelsea would move on it. This is not a football club who are in the back going, we're not doing anything. They move on things. You know that. They move on things when the opportunity is there. So I'm not writing off at all Chelsea bringing in another striker before the end of the window.
I'm very much of the opinion that we need to do that. Definitely, we do need to bring in another striker. Yes, some people are saying, well, we're playing 1 game a week. We haven't quite yet got Aubameyang off the books. There's the whole situation with Romelu Lukaku as well, which has taken an absolute crazy spin. Do you know what I mean? But when is things with Lukaku ever steady? Do you know what I mean? This guy is one of the most entertaining players to watch off the pitch. Do you know, as well as the entertainment he provides on the pitch, whether it's positive or negative, man. But Lukaku, apparently, it's come out that before the Champions League final, Lukaku is actually talking with Juventus about a potential move to their club, which must be a horrific thing for Inter fans and the club to hear. And obviously, as a result of that, naturally, Inter have pulled out of negotiations and are deeply disappointed with Romelu Lukaku. So, according to what do you know about this situation? Is that true?
I mean, to be honest, the Lukaku situation has just been an absolute madness from start to finish. So everything on it has been he's going to Inter Milan. Inter Milan wants him. He only wants Inter Milan. He's turned down offers from Saudi Arabia to stay in Europe primarily because he wants Inter Milan. So everything was focused around Inter Milan. What I know is that Inter Milan are furious because he's told them that he only wants Inter Milan. Don't worry, I want Inter Milan. So they, of course, are walking away from this livid because they have put a lot of eggs in this basket to bring him into the club. They could have been working on another striker at this point in time. So you can understand their point of view from that. And Juventus have swooped in. Of course, it's not happened overnight. It's not something where Lukaku's gone, do you know what, actually, I'm going to talk to them. This is something that would have been going on in the background for a while. But all the information was it's Inter and Chelsea. They're going to come to an agreement before Monday and he'll go to Inter Milan. Juventus have come in. Chelsea actually preferred Inter Milan's offer for the makeup of the offer. But that's now kind of dead and buried, isn't it? So he's on his way to Juventus, it looks like, at this point in time. It's amazing because I think it just shows how he said in his own words, I will never ever play for Juventus. Never. It's never going to happen. Never. That was his own words. And of course, that's what I said at the beginning. Football changes fast. Well, he's changed his own words. And now he looks like he's going to be wearing the black and white of Inter Milan. I wonder how he'd be received at the San Siro when they play there next season. I mean, geez, that's going to be that's going to certainly be very, very interesting.
It's going to be a furnace for him, man. Absolutely toxic over there. But it's not like this has never been done before. I mean, other extreme cases have been, the Luis Figo situation. Do you remember back then when they threw a pig's head on the pitch for
Yeah, that was
Figo?
unreal.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be
Sol
the first.
Campbell. I mean, look at the
So
likes of Sol
Campbell,
Campbell. In Scotland, you've had Kenny Miller, who's gone from Rangers and then ended up at Celtic and stuff. So that's a rarity, but these things do happen rarely. And when they happen, it's like, geez, get
yeah.
ready, fire and
and,
brimstone
and, and
stuff.
I think a lot of it as well is to do with the profile of the player because let's have it
Yeah,
right in terms of off the pitch, he is a massive sort of figure. People know who he is outside of football. He's
yeah.
marketed himself as such now. So I think that's obviously I added a bit more fuel to the fire. Having Lukaku and Vlahovic, I mean, it would be good options to have going forward. But is that a reality? Would Juve first have to sell Vlahovic before perhaps investing in Romelu Lukaku?
Well, my understanding is Vlahovic was always likely to leave this summer, so that's nothing new for me there at all if he does go. So my expectation at this point, and it's an expectation, so please take it as such, is that Lukaku will replace Vlahovic as their main forward. I'm expecting Vlahovic to leave Juventus this summer. I think he himself is expecting to leave Juventus this summer, but of course it's going to take the right offer to do that. That doesn't mean he's walking out the door for nothing. Juventus, of course, will want their buck for their player, so we'll wait and see. But I would be surprised. Football's a surprising thing, especially the transfer window. But I would be surprised if he's still there at the end of the season. I don't really like saying things like that because people clip it up and go, he's still there.
Yeah, yeah,
Clip up what you like. I would be surprised if he's still there at the end of the season.
yeah. Apparently, PSG have a very strong
Yeah.
interest in Vlahovic, and apparently, I don't know how true it is, but I read somewhere that they've agreed personal terms. So now it's between PSG and Juve to agree a price. But
There'll be a verbal agreement. So this is where people kind of get, I guess, the waters get muddied. As they will have presented a package to Vlahovic's representatives of what they would like to offer Vlahovic, of the role he would play, of the years on the contract, the sign-on bonus, the bonus structure, the wage. That'll all have been discussed with
right,
to Vlahovic's people, and they'll sign that off. Vlahovic will say that sounds good to me. That's a verbal yes. Obviously, nothing's signed and sealed until those last moments, but yeah, he will have said yes to it. Otherwise, PSG would not be moving forward in the manner that they are.
Chelsea, we need to wake up. We need to get a massive deal out of the way. We've just seen Arsenal get their statement midfield signing in Declan Rice. It is official. He is in the Arsenal colours. One of the worst kept secrets of this summer
Mm-hmm.
transfer window has finally come to an end.
But there's another one. Sorry to interrupt you. There's a good example. So Declan Rice, my reporting, along with others, but my reporting, I'll talk for myself, was always Arsenal's his first choice. He's going to
Yeah,
go to Arsenal. Arsenal's his first choice. But in amongst that, we were getting, he's saying yes to Newcastle. He's going there. Man City are going to take him and all that. And it's like, well, no, Arsenal's his first choice. And that's been the same. So, the Chelsea striker situation, you're getting lots of different messages. And that's the same from what happened with Declan Rice. But nothing changed. In reality, what happened? He ended up at Arsenal as expected.
right.
So that's why you've got to be careful all the time. People will choose who to believe. Please go ahead, do that. We've all got our favourite people we like to listen to, of course, but that's where nothing becomes really clear. There's always usually something clear towards the end of stuff. But Declan Rice was a good example of someone who we knew what was happening, yet even though we knew that, there was 9 million reports of all these different things that could be happening. So that's a good example of that. But sorry, mate.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I was just going to move on to the next saga that needs to come to an end for my sake and obviously my fan base, and that is Moises Caicedo. This has been dragging on for a very long time. So it feels for myself. Obviously, you not being a Chelsea fan, but as good as being a Rangers fan, do you know what I mean? Have a rational look from outside of the box because sometimes the excitement does get the better of me as a fan. But Caicedo, what is going on with this situation? Because this has been going on for weeks now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I would have expected Caicedo probably in a Chelsea shirt by now. And I'm a reporter telling you that. I think we're all a bit kind of jaded by this story because everyone keeps, I even seen Fabrizio and others, David, saying to people, like, we can only report what's happening, and that is that talks are ongoing over the deal. And we're all a bit bored of it, right? We're all a bit kind of like, right, because I would be shocked if Chelsea don't land Moises Caicedo. Shocked. I'll be shocked if he's not a Chelsea player. It'll be a huge, huge drop of the ball for Chelsea. They've already lost out on Ugarte, obviously, earlier in the window, and they don't want to do that with Caicedo. Caicedo's people and Caicedo, the frustration that's coming from Caicedo's side is coming at how long it's taking to get this done, because the idea was this would be quite quick, which is what I'd said previously. as well. So the fact that we're coming into week 3 or 2 of official negotiations, really, and it's not done yet. It's a bit kind of. I expect next week Chelsea to have sorted this out. I really do. What's probably taking the most time, I think, at this point in time is how much Chelsea are willing to put up front and how much Brighton are willing to accept up front. And I think that's kind of where the difficulty lies. I think it will hit and back on my Twitter the other day, I think it will hit the £80 million mark, and add-ons will make it up to probably near that 90, 100 potentially, with potential add-ons if they are achievable. But I think the structure is what's taking the time. How much is Brighton going to get up front? Because at the end of the day, quite rightly for Brighton, they want to make sure that they're able to replace Caicedo or bring in someone of a similar stature or put that money elsewhere in the team, because obviously they have brought Milner and Dahoud in there as well. So we'll wait and see what happens, but that is what's taking the time, because the personal terms and the player side's all ready to go. Caicedo's ready to go. That's all done, dusted. It's just the signing the FIFA agreements and all that. But it's the club v club thing now that we're waiting on. And I think next week will be a big week.
Could there be a threat of another club? Like, for example, we've heard little rumblings about Liverpool perhaps having a look at the progression of this deal, and one or two others. Manchester City potentially. I know I haven't seen any links between those two. The club and player, or Manchester United even, who are looking for that profile of midfielder. Could there be a danger that one of these clubs could swoop in, or is Caicedo very much adamant that he wants Chelsea, as we have seen reports say?
Well, there's always the danger that another club can swoop in. Of course, I use this analogy all the time, mate. I used it last time when I was on here, where
Yeah.
they're all shopping in the same aisle of the shop, right? And if you don't pick up your item, someone else might see it. And that is certainly the case. Let's go back to Declan Rice again. Arsenal were in the clear for Declan Rice. There was no sniff that anyone else was coming in, and then Manchester City moved. And that was a moment of a scare, I suppose. But Rice was never going to Manchester City, so Arsenal knew that and were patient in their response and retort with their bid. Chelsea, of course, are clear for Caicedo at this point in time. There is no one else in the talks at the moment. They're the only club involved. But of course, there's the opportunity. Liverpool, like Caicedo, have done for a long time. They are long-term admirers of him. But Liverpool have spent 70 million on Dominic Szoboszlai already at this point. They've already brought in Alexei McAllister as well, which is a fantastic deal. They want to bring in a centre-back. Romeo Lavia is certainly a target for Liverpool at this point in time as well, especially if Henderson and Fabinho go out. So maybe they're looking in another direction. I would be surprised if you see Liverpool sign Caicedo for 80 plus, as well as what they've already signed. That's not Liverpool at all. It's not the structure of what they do. They work on the 3 A's, which is availability, ability, and affordability. That is their transfer strategy. Caicedo probably doesn't match affordability at this point in time, so that's unlikely as well. Man City obviously like him, but at this point in time, I would be surprised if they come in. It would be a late flurry for him, but he's already quite far down the line with Chelsea. So, listen, it's more than possible for another team to come in. We've seen it already in this window, and it's more than possible it can happen. But right as I speak at this moment in time, Chelsea are the ones in the driving seat with no one else around them.
He's not the only midfielder that we need. We've had several outgoings, loads of outgoings at our club. So we're going to need to be looking at some more. And Romeo Lavia is somebody that, I like very much. It seems that Liverpool have taken a strong interest in the player, and potentially they could be making a bid for him soon. Now, my question is this: are Chelsea solely focusing on this Caicedo deal? And if so, why would you do that when there's also other targets that we know you're after, but other teams are sniffing around? I don't personally understand. So, in terms of Lavia, is there an interest that remains there as well?
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea did a lot of groundwork earlier in the window, which has been. I'll just give you my full reporting on Lavia up to this point, which is, again, I'll speak for myself, but my reporting on Lavia is as such. I know Arsenal are in a good position here in terms of the conversations that they've had. They've been very positive, and Lavia has greenlit what they would like to do with them if they are to come in with him. Because lots of clubs have spoken to Lavia and had a look at him and gauged what it would be like to bring him in. Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp likes him a lot. Jurgen Klopp has got the Jurgen Klopp factor, and that does mean something still, despite their season last year, of course. And Liverpool like him a lot, and could be an option for them to move. Chelsea did a lot of legwork on Romeo Lavia earlier on in the season, and there was almost an anticipation that they would bid, especially after the Ugarte scenario. I think there was a consideration of moving on that, but they've obviously gone for Caicedo now. They're working on that, and Liverpool aren't in talks with Lavia at this point in time. Arsenal aren't in talks with Lavia at this point in time. So that isn't a safe place of stasis at this point. Chelsea are still looking from a distance. And the 50 million price tag that Southampton have got on him is something that clubs don't believe that he's actually worth. But of course, Manchester City have got that 2024 buyback clause of around 45. So Southampton have the right to stick to 50 because they can say, well, we can just sell him for only 5 million less in a year's time. So that you can understand why they are sticking to that fee. But certainly clubs that are interested think they could get him for less than that. So that's kind of where that is. No club's really ever just working on one thing at a time, but there is going to be one deal that takes the focus of those who are mainly the main guys in your negotiations, for example. So Caicedo's taken a lot of effort and work to bring it to a place where the structure is good enough for both teams to agree on. Chelsea have got that green light from him and know the pressure's on them really to deliver Caicedo because fans have already seen targets that maybe they would have liked or, players that we know Chelsea were in for go to other clubs. So I think that there is a lot of focus on that at this point in time. But to say that they're the only people Chelsea are only talking to Brighton is wrong because the likes of Winstanley and Co and all these other guys will be taking multiple calls per day, but sitting at the table with someone, you can't split yourself in half a lot of the time. So that is where Brighton are going to. That's why the Caicedo deal is in full focus at this moment in time.
We've also been seeing the links between Chelsea and Lyon for Ryan Cherki. I know that that's a player that Chelsea have been very interested in, even before Todd Boehly was at the club. So there has been existing interest with Cherki. But are Lyon open to doing the deal? Because I do understand they've got one or two other players that are potentially leaving the club, and they're not obviously trying to get rid of too many players. But let's start with that. Would Lyon be open to selling the player?
Yeah, for the right fee, absolutely, because they've got their own FFP issues to deal with. Leon, they're under their own parameters that they're trying to work out at this point in time. Reasonably similar, but not the same, but reasonably similar to Chelsea's situation, really, with getting players off the books. Chelsea obviously had a really fat squad of 32 players, so that was half their reason. But obviously, you've got Leon doing similar things. Dembele's going to leave as well. He's a player that isn't going to get a new deal because it's just not there for him. At this point in time, he's another one off the books. So, yeah, absolutely, they're open to the deal. They're open to the right money for him. If they could sell him, it will allow them to push that into this year's FFP, give them a bit, or their restrictions in Liga 1 and give them a bit more leeway in that as well. So, yeah, no, absolutely, the option's there for a deal. It's just got to be the right price. Ryan Cherki is someone that Chelsea have looked at a lot. Not alone in that. My understanding there is another major EPL club who I've not been given the name of, but there's another major EPL club who are also keep looking at him a lot. I think because of the way he twists and turns and the way he feints and stuff, a lot of Chelsea fans get the Hazard vibe off him, and I think that's an unfair
I agree.
comparison on the kid
Comparison,
now.
yeah.
Eden Hazard at Chelsea was one of the best players in the world at some point, so that's a bit unfair. But he's certainly a very talented individual. Creativity, spark would bring that what Felix was supposed to bring, I guess, and it won't be. So he'll fit that mold. Certainly would fit into the Chelsea squad well. A player Pochettino we understood would be happy to work with. So we'll wait and see. But certainly a player Chelsea have got on the radar. But he's not alone in that position. Look at the likes of Florian Wirtz as well at Leverkusen. He's another one that's been looked at, not just by Chelsea, by a number of clubs as well. Yeah, and there's a number of players. So yeah, but Cherki is on the list.
So apparently the quoted price tag for Cherki is about 50 million euros. Once again, I don't know how true that is. How far into this deal are there, or is there even any progress? Is it just tentative interest at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you that they've got the money in a bag ready to go, and I'm not going to tell you that because I don't know that, and I've not been told that. I just know that he's a player that they've looked at. They understand the conditions of the deal. I've not been told £50 million or euros. Was it euros you said? Sorry,
Euros, yeah.
I've not been told that. I think Leon will be looking for around the 65 mark, but whether it does come to 50 and add-ons, it's all part and parcel. Because he's a very good player and they would want to get as much money as they possibly can for him.
Naturally.
So we'll wait and see. I think €50 million is about the £40 million mark. That does seem quite low for Cherki, but we'll wait and see. Listen, it's not what I've been told. I've not been told that figure or a figure definitively, so we'll wait and see at this point in time. But yeah, certainly a player Chelsea like. They've made approaches to his team to understand the conditions. That's still something that's very early on in this process. A lot of clubs do that with a lot of players who you don't really know about or never make it to the club. So that's still very early on. So we'll wait and see. I can see it. I could see it happening. It wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea move. I'm willing to say that from what I understand. But we'll wait and see. It's still early in this. I know we've only got a month and a half left, and people are starting to get a bit more butterflies. But like I said, next week's a big week. And I think next week will be the week that you start to see a lot more wheels turning in a lot more other directions. So Sherky, yeah, to Chelsea, certainly a possibility, but there might be more sharks in the water. With him, we were talking about it with Caicedo. I think with him, there's a great possibility of more sharks in the water quite quickly. So we'll wait and see.
We've spoken about Caicedo, spoken about Lavia, who I hope Chelsea pull their finger out for as well, because we need more than just one number 6. We need 2. I've maintained that. I'd be very happy with Ryan Cherky. But then there's also our youth players as well. We haven't made a decision, so it seems, with Andre Santos. There's also, I'm hearing with Caicedo, that's a bit of a different situation. Leicester are currently trying to negotiate a loan move
Yeah.
for the player, so which I think is a positive thing. Although I would have preferred to see Caicedo perhaps at like a Brighton or something like that. But they've got players to fill that position. They're not in need for the player. But Andre Santos, that's an interesting one because Barcelona were interested in loaning him. Porto were interested in loaning him. And all of a sudden, it's gone quiet. So, is this a player that Chelsea could potentially see involved with the first team?
Sorry, I just got a message there. Yeah, honestly, Andre Santos, my understanding is Chelsea were desperate for his work permit when they arrived last time and they weren't able to attain it. And they've obviously got it this time, so it's a bit different. They're moving in, that's all getting sorted in the background. Anyway, that's by the by. My point is that he's a player that has got the opportunity to play with the first team, and that's where they want him. So obviously, Pochettino's the new guy in. He's going to assess him, have a look at him. I don't see Chelsea loaning him to Barcelona anytime soon, to be quite perfectly honest. Football's mad, could happen. Someone might have the scoop, and I don't know about it. And if they do, fantastic. But that would be interesting. And I think if they could avoid loaning him and he's got a role to play in the squad, they will. Because Chelsea need those numbers in there. They value him very highly. They rate him very, very highly. And the sooner he's in around it, the better, for sure. So we'll wait and see. If the opportunity for a European loan comes off, though, they bring 2 or 3 in, his game time might be down, and the European loan's there for a team like you said Porto, didn't you, who would be in the Champions League, etc.
Yeah.
Then that could maybe work. But at this point in time, he's seen as a really, really high talent who they want in and around the club. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him integrated with the first team. I've seen some very good things about him, and even just in terms of his leadership as well, the way he led that Brazilian squad to the cup. So yeah, he's a player that I can see with high potential, and we need leaders in this Chelsea squad anyway. So hopefully we can see his inclusion in the squad. But seeing as we're talking about trying to get players to remain at the club, Levi Colwell has also been a very hot topic. We all know that he's got a year left on his contract. Very, very rated by Chelsea Football Club. Had a great, great loan spell at Brighton. And we are desperate to keep Levi Colwell. And I believe that he does have an opportunity to prove himself in the first team. Benoit Badiashile is currently injured, so he can keep him out of the team with a run of good games. But so far, what do we know about that? Because the last place I sort of left it was at, that Pochettino and him were yet to have a chat. And Colwell wanted some, not guarantees, but he just wanted to have a conversation with the manager to see how he's going to be used in the season. So what do we currently know about that situation?
Yeah, my understanding of that is that it's not changed. Chelsea's still saying that he is not for sale at all. They've got a new deal ready to go for him as well, and him and Pochettino will have already they've spoken since he's come back. Is my understanding, but I think he needs to see him in training. Colwell needs guarantees, absolute guarantees of playtime. I think he will get playtime. I do think he will, and I would be very surprised if he leaves Chelsea at this point. That's where my understanding is. They're not going to sell him to Liverpool. The Chelsea see this guy as a future England regular and captain and a future Chelsea regular. Selling him to Liverpool at this point is just beyond kind of comprehension. So it will come down to obviously the contract. If Cole feels he's not going to play and he doesn't sign it, maybe that makes things difficult, right? But Chelsea want to give him a wage that is replicative of people who are already in the first team and playing in defence. So that shows what Chelsea's plans are for him really there. And with their constant feed out of, to me and others, of he is not for sale, and anyone saying that he is just lying, that does suggest they're feeling quite strongly on that issue. So we'll wait and see. I think Pochettino was just being coy in a lot of what he said as well, because I don't think he wants to give guarantees over the media
Yeah,
to
exactly,
anyone.
exactly.
So I think there was a bit of that going on in the background as well. But yeah, like I said, I can only repeat myself, mate, and that is that Chelsea have said he's not for sale and they're going to offer him a new deal. So that is where we're at with that at this point in time. I mean, it would probably be the biggest shock of the summer for me, I think, if he was to leave. I think it would be, just because how strong Chelsea have been on him not going, that if he was to leave, that would be the biggest shock of the summer for me. I think it would be, I'd be blown away by that.
I mean, some of my fan base are just going crazy, and so the Chelsea fan base are just going crazy because, there was that video of Levi Colwell doing the international duty, and his teammate Madueke saying, "Listen, I'm going to bring him back to Chelsea or whatever." I'm paraphrasing here; it's not word for word, but something along those lines. And Levi Colwell sort of just turned away from the camera, and a lot of people took that as, "Oh, look, he doesn't want to come back to Chelsea and all this and that." Like, it's ridiculous. And my
Look like mates bantering each other up, to be quite perfectly
yeah,
honest with
that's how
you.
I felt about it. And to
I
me,
think Madueke knew it was the hot topic, and Levi Cole was going to shut up. I don't want to talk about it. I really think
exactly. And I've always said as well, look, as a professional football player, you're supposed to keep your mouth shut. When it comes to things like this, you're supposed to stay quiet. So if people want to take anything from it and read into it, I would say that that's a show of professionalism from a young player, and he done what he was supposed to do. And really and truly, he hasn't said anything about his future. He's
that.
letting the agent and the club deal with it as he should. And for me, that's a positive, rather than coming out and making promises and doing what his other teammates do in Romelu Lukaku, making promises and breaking them and disrespecting the club. So I prefer that you keep your mouth shut. But
I mean, listen, I will say Liverpool really like him. That's not a lie. That's very,
yeah,
very
yeah,
true.
that
They
much I
really,
know.
really like
Trust me,
him.
yeah.
But that that's not a lie. That is true. Like, they like him a lot. But I think at this point in time, it's going to be hard for them to get a deal. But that's, like I said, be the biggest shock for me of the summer. But mad things happen in the transfer window. So
Yeah, I think Levi does stay. I think he does sign a new deal as well, and I think he's going to get the game time that he's looking for at Chelsea. So hopefully those things do happen. But another position
Mhm.
that I want to touch on, that for the past, I'd say, week or so, haven't really heard too much news on this position, and that is the goalkeeper situation. That is a big sticking point for a lot of us Chelsea fans, because Kepa is not really trusted by the majority of us for the right reasons. And I say that respectfully as well. I'm not trying to disrespect the player. But, you know, there was a point where we were in this race for Andre Onana. Now it looks like he's going to be going to Manchester United to link up with his old manager, Ten Hag. What's going on with Chelsea? Are we going to be trusting Kepa as the number one, or are we going to still be keeping our eyes open in the market? Have you had any information about the goalkeeper situation at Chelsea?
Well, this is where logic defies me for people saying that you're not going to sign a striker if you're not going to sign a goalkeeper. So if you're not signing a goalkeeper, it means you're keeping funds for another area of the pitch, in my opinion. So
Right.
that's why it would defy logic that Chelsea aren't putting something in the bank um, for, this is a hypothetical, a big go at an Osimhen at the end of the window or something like that ilk, right? But I'm not saying they are going to do that, but this is Todd Bowley's Chelsea, so we'll wait and see what happens. I still understand Chelsea would be open to another goalkeeper in there. I expect another
Okay.
goalkeeper to come in, and it
Okay.
was to challenge for the number one position. That's my
Okay.
understanding. So what Pochettino has said is, I'm happy to work with Kepa, and I'm happy for Kepa to be here playing for, challenging and playing for number one. He's not said Kepa's my number one and nobody else is coming in. So, what's he going to say? Is he going to be in a press? They knew Mendy was leaving, so he's not going to sit there and go, I'm not happy with Kepa. I don't like him. I think he's rubbish. That's not happening. He's just stated how happy he is to work with him, which is fine. Absolutely what you would expect. And I think if the opportunity is right, Chelsea will still move on a goalkeeper. They were the only team in the Onana race to start with, actually.
Yeah.
Manchester United liked him a lot. Ten Hag liked him a lot, don't get me wrong. But in terms of conversations, they were in the driving seat. They were in the room with Inter Milan to have those conversations. The difficulties did arise between. It's not been the easiest negotiations between Chelsea and Inter Milan. That's a fact over
Yeah.
Lukaku. So I think there was that to play in it as well. And also Andre Onana in the end stated he wanted to reunite with Ten Hag. He really wanted to go to Chelsea. He was happy with that move. But I think when Man United did fully say, listen, we're committed to try to bring you to the club, I think that shifted the momentum. And I think that's what Chelsea, when Chelsea decided, you know what, we'll let him go. But I think for me personally, I think it's a good opportunity missed. I think it's a very good goalkeeper at a very good price as well. So we'll wait and see. But I think if the opportunity arises and Chelsea see a good deal for another goalkeeper to come in, then that will happen as well.
I mean, in terms of who's left, AC Milan's Mike Maignan.
Big
Once,
deal. That's a lot of money.
yeah, I was gonna say, once again, I don't know how true this is, but apparently they've come out and slapped €100 million price tag to open conversation.
Yeah, well, they've stated he's just not for sale. Someone would have to blow them out of the water to get Mike Mignon in the club. Chelsea like him a lot. He has made the lists and been on the recruitment boards and the rooms and all that of Chelsea, 100%. But that's a huge deal to get Mike Mignon, and I'd be surprised if that's even thought of at this point in time.
So very unlikely for a move for Maignan to happen. €100 million is a massive outlay. We know the quality of the goalkeeper definitely, but €100 million is a bit steep considering we've got other positions that we need to address as well. But even outside that, there's also one of my favorites. Not a lot of people like the goalkeeper is Diogo Costa of Porto. There's also that
Mm.
situation. He's available. Chelsea have been looking at him as well, but I don't know to what extent here. But apparently he could be an option. And there's also Pochettino's fellow countryman, Martinez at Aston Villa. But I do understand that a deal for him would be very difficult to get done. Aston Villa don't want to sell the goalkeeper. But in terms of other targets potentially we could see coming before the end of the window, have you got any knowledge of goalkeepers Chelsea are interested in?
Well, let's talk about Diogo Costa. Chelsea have discussed Diogo Costa and do like Diogo Costa. So that is certainly one just to keep an eye on towards the end as the window rolls on. Sorry,
Nice.
that is certainly one that's lower than the Mike Mignon kind of price as well. Maybe
Yeah.
sits more near the Andre Onana kind of price as well. So that certainly is a possibility if the stars align or things fall together for Chelsea to do that in this window. But I know he's been spoken about quite a lot. And it's a really good young goalkeeper as well, Diogo Costa. He's still young in terms of goalkeeping, obviously, so he's got a lot to offer. Martinez at Aston Villa is just not going to leave at this point in time. I don't believe. I think Aston Villa will be £100 million for him. It's £100 million for
Wow.
Mike Mignon. It's
Wow.
£100 million for Martinez. That's the kind of figures we've been told around him. They believe he's one of the best goalkeepers in world football at this point in time. So why would they sell him when they've got their own push into Europe and they would have to replace him with someone of equal quality? You're talking about a guy who's probably made one of the most memorable saves in recent history in that World Cup final. So yeah, listen, I don't see Martinez going anywhere. He's come out and said himself, I'm very happy here. I'm looking forward to next season. I know that doesn't always mean much
Mhm.
in football, but I understand Unai Emery would expect him to be in the squad next year as well. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. A lot can happen in that amount of time, but certainly as you spoke about Costa, I think that's going to be one to watch over the course of the window as well. We'll wait and see. He's not only Chelsea that like him though. Again, like, as is the case with all these players.
Yeah, yeah.
But certainly one to watch. He was also on Man United's radar before they settled on Onana. So that's certainly a player that's got legs to talk about. We can talk about potentially him moving to Chelsea, and I wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me. It doesn't mean it's happening. Wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea did push and move and decide to go for him towards the end of the window. I think the next couple of weeks is going to be key as well, as Pochettino works more with his players and sees what he's got. There is a little bit of that at play here as well, with Pochettino going, do you know what? I've worked with X, Y, and Z for the last 3 weeks, and I need something else. So I think that's going to be quite a big part to play in this as well, mate.
Diogo Costa, I feel he's a quality goalkeeper and he's exactly what we're looking for. The only thing is, my only question mark around Costa would be to see how he would deal with aerial balls in the Premier League. That for me is a massive, that's an unknown factor. But in terms of his distribution, absolutely brilliant. In terms of his reflexes, brilliant. In terms of saving penalties as well, he's got that in his locker. So we're not talking about a scrub of a goalkeeper, but quite a few Chelsea fans are worried, perhaps he ain't quite physical enough, he's not quite tall enough. I don't really think that's an issue from what I've seen from him. Some of them will look at his performances at the World Cup. Listen, every goalkeeper makes their mistakes. You know what I mean? But for me, overall, from what I've seen from him, I think he's a quality goalkeeper. I want to touch on something overall in terms of Chelsea's, recruitment policies. Now, all of the players that we've discussed are, sub 25. They're very young players,
Mm.
and a lot of the fans are kind of concerned that we're not mixing these youngsters with those that have quote unquote been there, done it, with the experience at winning things at the highest level. Now, in terms of our structure, are we looking to still remain with that sort of under 25, under 24 sort of threshold for this summer, or will we potentially be seeing, a bit more experience added to the squad perhaps later on down the line, or perhaps even in this window? I mean, have you heard anything on that side of things?
Well, experience is relative. I mean, uh, Marcus Rashford's a highly experienced player and he's still young. You
Yeah,
know, Enzo Fernandez is still young and he's a World Cup winner. Played
yeah.
in the Champions League. You know, it's
Badiashile as well.
yeah, exactly. You know, there's another one, Wesley Fofana, who's got how many Premier League games under his belt now as well. So these experience is relative to where you've been and what you've done. I think when people say the word experience, they mean like a 28-year-old who's in their peak, who's coming
Yeah,
into
yeah,
yeah, and no at this point in time. But I mean, what we can say is Chelsea have always had this plan, and I talked about this a lot in January of building a team to go with the project. So they're looking to, they want a team that's going to move and grow along the project of making Chelsea the best team in England, one of the best teams in Europe. They're not buying bad players. It's just young.
yeah.
So I think that's the difference. It's not as if they're buying guys you don't know. They're not just using guys out of the youth system. You know, Enzo Fernandez, Andre Santos, Mikhailo Mudryk, you know, Madi, uh,
Madueke.
Madueke, sorry, Madueke as well in there. Even Jackson up front, yep, quite reasonably inexperienced. I think for him, you could probably say that out of the most, he's maybe the reason most inexperienced. But it's got look how many goals he scored. What 8 and 9 games or something towards the end of the season for Villarreal in the Liga, one of the top 3 leagues in world football. So again, experience is relative to what they have there. And also, I would say that Chelsea have got a collective there of players who, although young, last season actually might have been a better season for them if they had actually won a lot.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
last season they would have got thick skin, they would have learned how to battle, they would have learned how to be together, and also in terms of trimming the squad that Chelsea have now done, it allows these players to get the full focus and time and attention of the management and of the coaching staff. I think Chelsea will have a really good season next year. I've said this to you before. I really do think Chelsea have a good year next year. I don't think they're done. And again, experience is relative to whatever the player they're buying. So, you know, is Jude Bellingham inexperienced?
yeah, exactly. Good question. He's not inexperienced. He's got a bag of football underneath his belt, on both domestic and European as well,
Yeah. Got
international
captain
too.
in Dortmund, played at the World Cup, he's played in the Champions League, he's played in the Europa League. So I think inexperienced is always a bit of a word that's thrown out for something
Yeah,
that's not
I
really
should have
really
perhaps
true.
used more senior players rather than
I get that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, senior pros. But again, you've got Reece James there. You've got Ben Chilwell there. Raheem Sterling is still at the club as well. So there are guys around who have been there, done it, worn the t-shirt, who will be seen as senior members. Like Reece James is young, but he's certainly a man that is Mr. Chelsea, isn't he? He's like he knows the standard that you've got to be at. Enzo
yeah.
Fernandez is the same. So seniority also comes through your actions, your attitude, and how you carry yourself as well. So yeah, listen, I'm sure if there's a player that's available that's a bit older that might come in, let's say it's Neymar, and Chelsea think we'll bring him in, sure. But I think if they've got a 21-year-old who's also going to be like Neymar and the opportunity is there, then why wouldn't they do that as well? So yeah, I get why people are maybe have concerns there, but Chelsea's plan is always to have players that grow with the project. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But again, experience and things like that are all relative. So we'll wait and see.
I mean, one player who I think is quality that's above the age quota for Chelsea, quote unquote, is Amrabat. I think we could do with a
Mm,
player like him, 27 or 28 years old, I believe, and also available for 25 million euros is what I
good
saw.
player.
And that is an absolute steal for a player of that quality. Why
Yeah.
Chelsea are not going in for this guy, I have absolutely no idea. But I think he would be a brilliant, brilliant player to sign. Does it in big games as well. I know, obviously in the Conference League they didn't win it, but he really showed that he was a quality player as well. Again, stood up
Hmm.
to be counted as he does. I wouldn't mind seeing him at Chelsea, but obviously haven't heard any interest, and he is above the age profile that we have currently been looking at. But Fraser, thank you very much for joining me today and giving me the scoop. I know today was very Chelsea biased, but I haven't spoken about Chelsea for a while, so I felt a little bit selfish and just decided to talk about my own club for a bit. But
Good man.
in terms of content, obviously Fraser's on Twitter. I do link his Twitter page underneath the videos in the description. So definitely make sure you check those out. Definitely keeps me informed as well. I retweet, repost a lot of his stuff. Do you know what I mean? So definitely go and check that out. But in terms of any other content, Fraser, have you got anything that is currently up you would like the people to see, or anything that will be coming up on other platforms you would like people to see?
Well, also you can find me. I host on the Football Insider YouTube channel. I'll do things like Transfer Daily and Insider Focus, where I might look at clubs' targets and things like that. So you can catch me on there. And then, like you said, I'm on Twitter. All my links are on my Twitter. I won't bore you with all my links. They're all on my Twitter.
Yeah, so definitely you know where to find him, and hopefully next time we speak, Caicedo is over the line, and maybe we are in advanced negotiations for a few exciting players to bring into this Chelsea team, man. But until then, man, once again, thank you very much for taking the time to join me over here at Man Knows Football. People, smash that subscribe button, leave your thoughts down there in the comments as well. I will be cutting out shorts for these from these videos as well, so when you see them, make sure you do share them around. People would very much appreciate that. But until next time, people, stay safe. Gareth Southgate out. Later.